The night the temperature dropped to minus 30 degrees Celsius, U.S. veteran Ethan Cole thought he was completely alone. The storm was fierce, the roads were buried, and not a single living creature should have been outside in that deadly cold. Ethan never expected anyone to knock on his remote cabin door. But when he looked up, he froze. Outside, half buried in snow, trembling, and barely able to stand, was a retired police dog. His breath fogged the icy glass. His paw slowly pressed against the window as if begging for help. Moments later, the dog collapsed, his body shaking, his fur stiff with ice. He tried to lift his head, but he couldn't. Only his eyes moved. Pleading, desperate, locked on Ethan as if he had finally found what he'd been searching for. Ethan grabbed the dog and rushed him inside, unaware that this moment would unravel a story connected to his past, his fallen friend, and a loyalty stronger than death itself, because this dog didn't come to his door by accident, that he came with a purpose. And when Ethan discovered that purpose, everything changed. Stay with us, because what this dog did next, no one could have imagined. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The blizzard came without warning, wind howling like a wounded beast, snow swallowing the world in white. At minus 30 degrees Celsius, even the trees seemed to shiver. Inside a small wooden cabin tucked deep within the Montana wilderness, U.S. veteran Ethan Cole sat beside the fireplace, rubbing his hands together as the flames crackled softly. Nights like this reminded him of deployments, cold, lonely, and filled with memories he tried not to revisit. Then, a sound cut through the storm. Scratch. Scratch, scratch. Ethan stiffened. No one should be out here. Not at this hour. Not in this deadly cold. He turned his head slowly toward the frosted window, and his heart lurched. The German shepherd stood outside, snow clinging to his fur, his body trembling violently. Frost covered the glass, but Ethan could still see the dog's desperate eyes, pleading, exhausted, fading. The dog lifted one weak paw and pressed it against the window, leaving a faint imprint in the frost. Before his legs buckled, Ethan shot to his feet. "Hey, hold on," he shouted, rushing to the door. The moment he swung it open, the wind slammed into him like a wall of ice. The dog collapsed completely, half buried in snow, unmoving. Ethan knelt beside him, scooping the freezing animal into his arms, and that's when he saw it. A torn police K9 collar tag, glinting beneath the ice. Ethan pushed the cabin door shut with his shoulder, cradling the limp German shepherd in his arms. The warmth inside hit the dog's frozen body, but there was no response, only shallow, fragile breaths. Ethan laid him gently near the fireplace, rubbing the dog's sides, trying to get blood flowing again. "Come on, buddy. Stay with me," he murmured, as the ice melted from the dog's fur. Ethan's eyes widened. Scars, deep, jagged, old and new, covered the shepherd's body. A bullet graze ran along his flank. A burn mark scarred his shoulder. This wasn't just a lost dog. This was a survivor. That a torn police K9 vest strap dangled from the dog's frozen harness. Ethan swallowed hard. "What happened to you?" Suddenly, the dog's eyes flickered open. He tried to stand but collapsed again, panting. His gaze drifted to Ethan's worn military boots beside the hearth. With trembling effort, he nudged them, then nudged Ethan's jacket on the chair, then whimpered, as if trying to communicate something urgent. Ethan leaned closer. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" The dog let out a weak whine before his body gave out again. Sinking into unconsciousness, Ethan's pulse quickened. This wasn't random. This dog had come here for a reason. Ethan lifted the dog's collar, brushing away the frost until the metal tag finally showed. His breath caught. K9 Shadow, retired. A name, and a past. Curiosity tightened in Ethan's chest. He pulled out his old laptop, its screen flickering to life. With numb fingers, he typed the dog's name into the search bar. The results loaded slowly. News articles, police reports, missing notices. Shadow wasn't just any dog. He was a decorated K9 officer. One headline made Ethan lean closer. Officer Grant killed in ambush. K9 partner missing, presumed dead. Ethan froze. Officer Grant. He knew that name. He served with him overseas before Grant joined the police force. Scrolling further, Ethan found details. Shadow had vanished after the shooting. Blood trails in the snow suggested he'd been injured. Search teams gave up after 3 days, assuming the dog had died somewhere in the wilderness. But he hadn't died. He had kept moving. Ethan looked over at the unconscious shepherd lying by the fire. His chest tightened. "How far did you walk, boy?" he whispered. Shadow suddenly twitched, his eyes opening just a sliver. He stared directly at Ethan, steady, recognizing, almost relieved that it wasn't random. Shadow hadn't stumbled here by chance. He had found someone he knew. Shadow stirred again, this time with more urgency. His weakened legs trembled as he pushed himself upright. Ethan rushed to steady him, but the dog moved with surprising determination, hobbling across the wooden floor toward a dusty metal trunk tucked beneath a shelf. "Hey, easy boy," Ethan called. But Shadow ignored him. The shepherd pressed his paw against the trunk, whining softly. Then again, and again, insistent, almost pleading. Ethan frowned. "You want me to open it?" With a deep breath, he knelt down and flipped the heavy latches. The lid creaked open, releasing a faint scent of old leather and memories Ethan had tried to bury years ago. Inside lay the remnants of his military past, folded uniforms, dog tags, letters, and a worn jacket he hadn't touched in years. Shadow immediately pushed his muzzle into the jacket, breathing deeply. Ethan pulled it out and froze that a photograph slipped from the pocket. Ethan picked it up with trembling fingers. That it was him, standing beside Officer Grant, his closest friend. The man who always said he wanted a K9 partner someday. The man Shadow had belonged to. Ethan's throat tightened. Shadow wasn't searching for shelter. He was searching for the last person connected to his fallen handler. Shadow nudged the jacket again, then rested his head against Ethan's knee. In that moment, Ethan understood everything. The next morning, as the storm eased, Ethan wrapped Shadow in a blanket and carried him to his truck. The nearest town was miles away, but Shadow needed help fast. The drive was slow, the roads icy, but Ethan didn't stop once. Not when Shadow whimpered. Not even when the tires skidded on frozen curves. The small rural vet clinic. The staff rushed Shadow inside. Ethan paced the hallway, hands clenched, heart pounding like he was back on the battlefield. Minutes felt like hours before the vet finally emerged. "Are you his owner?" the vet asked gently. Ethan hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe I'm all he has left." The vet sighed. "He's been injured for a long time. Some wounds never healed. And surviving in -30°C. He shook his head. Most dogs wouldn't last a single night. But he kept moving, limping, searching. Ethan swallowed. Searching for who? The vet held up a small device. His GPS chip was still active, though damaged. It tracked him circling this region for days, like he was trying to follow a scent. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Shadow wasn't looking for a new home. He wasn't wandering blindly. That he had come for Ethan, because Ethan was the last living piece of the man Shadow loved most. Ethan followed the vet into the recovery room. Shadow lay on a soft blanket, hooked to warm fluids, his breathing steadier now. When he noticed Ethan, his ears twitched, and he lifted his head just enough to acknowledge the man who hadn't left his side since the storm. Ethan knelt beside him, gently placing Grant's old jacket near the dog's paws. "He trusted me with his life," Ethan whispered. "And now, you've trusted me with yours." Shadow slowly rested his paw on the jacket, his eyes softening with a familiarity that pierced straight through Ethan's chest. It was the same paw Grant used to hold during training. The same gentle touch of a dog who had lost everything and fought through impossible odds to find what remained. "I won't let you be alone again," Ethan said, voice thick with emotion. "Whatever Grant started, we'll finish together." Weeks passed. Shadow healed, physically at first, then emotionally. His limp faded, his tail began to wag again, and he followed Ethan everywhere, refusing to leave the man he had chosen as family. The two soon began volunteering together, visiting veterans, helping train service dogs, offering hope where it was needed most. And one quiet evening, as snow drifted gently outside the cabin window, the same window Shadow once collapsed beneath, he curled beside Ethan's chair. Warm and safe at last, he was no longer a lost K9. He was home.